Hi everyone. On June 23rd, the Holy Orthodox Church celebrates the memory of a wonderful English saint named Etheldreda, who was the Queen of Northumbria and the Abbess of Ely. Now, she was born to good Christian parents named King Anna and his wife of East Anglia, and in fact his wife was the sister of St. Hilda of Whitby. They ended up having a total of 7 children, all who are accounted saints in the church today. Now, from a very early time, our wonderful Etheldreda had an inclination towards monastic life, but at the same time it was decreed that she most likely would have to marry, and in fact she did marry the son of a man who ended up giving her the Isle of Ely as a dowry. However, her husband was only 16 years of age, and she was 30. Well, he died soon after, and the marriage was never consummated. And so at that point, Etheldreda decided that she wanted to pursue the monastic life and made preparations for this. But as it turns out, another marriage presented itself, and the man that she was to marry, well, she had vowed to remain a virgin. And so even though he tried desperately to try and get her to consummate the marriage, and even made appeals to many other people who perhaps could persuade her, she refused. And so for 12 years, that marriage went on unconsummated. Well, after a while, the man whom she had married basically gave up, even though he indeed was the king of Northumbria. And so finally she could make definite preparations to take on the monastic garment and dedicate her life to Christ. Well, as she was heading towards Ely, it was found out that her husband had had a change of mind. And so he sent people after her to pursue her, to try and find her and bring her back. She was on the corner near the sea on a big rock, and it is said that the tide itself protected her, that it remained there, and it was impossible for them to get to her as long as it did. And only when the king finally gave up and decided to marry someone else instead, since the marriage was unconsummated, did nature's forces begin their normal course again. Well, she finally found her way to Ely and decided to build a new church there. And after the church was built, it was told to her that she would indeed become the first abbess of a convent to be found there. Now, Etheldreda was loved by all of the populace. She wore a wool shirt. She fasted intently. She prayed all the time. It was said that the demons would flee her even at the mention of her name when she wasn't there. And everyone had great respect and admiration for her. The whole area, as it were, became infected for the love of God by the influence and guidance of St. Etheldreda, who would indeed give spiritual guidance to whole families who would come to see her. Now, she had predicted that she was going to die in the plague, and she even predicted how many of her fellow monastics would also die in this plague. She also became infected with a great lump on her throat, and she actually said, well, I used to, when I was younger, wear jewels and necklaces, and so it's only appropriate that God give me this lump, for which I thank him, to help cleanse me of my sins. Well, the lump was lanced a few times by a doctor that gave her some relief, but finally it had spread and become very large, and indeed she was taken into plague in the year 679. It left a great impression on the remainder of the people that were in that area, the way that she took this illness unto her death. And she was venerated and still venerated even today. In fact, there were several translations of her relics which were found to be incorrupt and myrrh-gushing. And even now, her left arm can be seen whole and incorrupt in the Roman Catholic Cathedral of Ely to this day. The English saints were quite astounding in many ways, and there were many of them. And the closest parallel you could probably draw is to the Desert Fathers of the East. But they certainly were not wanting in anything having to do with the sanctity that they achieved through the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. St. Etheldreda was an example as an abbess, a mother, and one who knew how to bear afflictions in Jesus Christ and show the rest of us how to do the same.